And there is no one better to explain the economic background to why we need to leave the European Union and how much better off we will be when we have than our Chief Economist, Professor Tim Congdon.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here. It's very nice to see such a jam-packed hall. I'm ready to tell you, everybody, that we face in the next 2 years, perhaps the next 5 years, perhaps many years after that, until we're out of the European Union, a very exciting time in this party. But it's also going to be a challenging time. We've got a big national debate coming up over our membership of the European Union. We need to have the best arguments, the best ideas. We need to have the right facts and figures. And I see my job as UKIP's economic spokesman as being to help the party in producing the best arguments, having the best facts and figures, and so on. And what I want to do this morning is to give a presentation about a lie. This is the lie that we hear time and time again, that if we left the European Union, jobs would be at risk. What I'm going to try and show in the next 15 minutes is that the opposite is true. If we leave the European Union, more jobs will be created. Leaving the European Union is good for employment. Now, I'm going to start with, by the way, just make a plug for something I've just written. This is not in fact UKIP, it's a Freedom Association of which I'm chairman. But please, there are some copies at the back. Please take them away. They're rather heavy when there are a few hundred of them. I don't want any left at the end of the day, except perhaps for one, which may be used as future patrons' dinner and ordering golf for £5,000, but there we are. Now, this is what this horrible man, Nicholas Clegg, has said about this subject. He said, when you have 1 in 10 jobs in this country, 3 million people whose jobs are dependent on our position as a leading member of the world's biggest borderless single market, you play with that status at your peril. These are jobs at stake, livelihoods. Well, talking about lies from Lib Dem politicians, I couldn't help noticing front page of the Daily Mirror a few days ago, and at least on this particular occasion, this particular Lib Dem politician decided he had to be honest. But I wish he'd been honest about our energy policy and wind farms as well, but never mind. Now, this stuff about 3 million jobs is rubbish. The first, that's the most basic point, is that membership of the European Union is not a condition of trading with European nations. Last year, the EU imported from the rest of the world something like 1,700 billion euros worth of goods, very similar in fact to the national output of the UK. And the bulk of this was in fact from around the world. China, now in fact it's such a successful economy, but it exports more to the EU than we export to the other 26 members. These exports are about 4% of Chinese output. There are 800 million people at work in China, if you can imagine. Only 30 million here. And that implies that about 30 million people produce those exports from China to Europe. So, that argument, 30 million Chinese jobs depend on the EU market. But for heaven's sake, China is not an EU member state. No one has suggested it should become one, doesn't want to become one. When we've left the EU, we'll still be, as China is today, a huge exporter to remaining EU member states. We can export to the European Union, just as Norway, Switzerland and Turkey do at the moment. And we do not have to pay money to the European Union for this purpose, as Norway rather foolishly does, all around the world, countries export to Europe. They don't need to belong to the European Union in order to do that. Blake says that outside the European Union, we'd be isolated. He said isolation costs jobs. Now look, we live in a planet that's a globe. There is nowhere in this that's actually the center of the world. If China, they go over their little kingdom. If we are isolated when we leave the European Union, then plainly China, America, Australia, Russia are isolated today. Are they then poor, peripheral, marginalized, and have fewer jobs? Nonsense. If you go to these countries, a lot of people are working. You don't have to be in the EU to export to the EU. There are jobs all around the world. You don't have to be in the EU to be employed. This man suffers from Eurocentrism gone mad. There are 190 countries in the world, 27 belong to the EU, the rest do not. At the moment, those outside have got faster economic growth, they're enjoying better gains in living standards, they've also got better gains in employment growth. By leaving the EU, we'd be like the other 160 countries or other 160 countries outside the EU. Big deal. Now look, those are the simple ideas. He simply just got this all wrong. There's no particular reason for thinking that being outside the EU jeopardized any jobs at all. What I want to do in the next few minutes, for a bit of time I think, is to show you some facts and figures. I'm going to have to move fairly quickly because I know we're short of time, but this shows you the employment of men in our country over the last, over 25 years from when we joined the common market as it then was back in 1973, but a couple of years just before that. And notice that when we joined, about 15.5 million men were employed in Britain. 10 years later, it was under 14 million. 20 years later, in 1993, that was a bit under 14 million, more like 13.5 million. Ladies and gentlemen, the first 20 years of our association with the European construction, the common market became the European Union in 1993. The first 20 years, the jobs of 2 million men in Britain disappeared. Okay, that's the truth, all right? I'm making this up, these are official figures. That's the truth. What is this nonsense about the EU being good for jobs? This shows you the proportion, I'm an economist, not a comedian, I apologize. This shows you the proportion of people of working age actually in work in different countries. These are the two main non-EU member states in Europe, Switzerland and Norway at the top. Almost 80% in Switzerland, Norway 75%. You get English-speaking countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, ourselves, Japan, America. And then at the bottom, the European Union, and the most European of all with a single currency, the Eurozone. You see, in the Eurozone, 63.8% of the population working age actually at work, Switzerland 79.3%, and we're 70%. So, if we were to become very, very European, to adopt a single currency and so on, something like harmonized with the Eurozone, 6% of our jobs would go, all right? They have less people actually at work of working age than most other industrial countries. 6% of our jobs is 1.8 million people, all right? Let's get over in the European Union and the Eurozone. Just to make one more point before I finish. As we know in this room, many people in Britain are worried about immigration and the threat to jobs that immigration implies. This obviously is important to, when we go canvassing, and we hear it time and time again. And it's true. These aren't figures from Tim Congdon or UKIP or Michael Farrar, these are official government figures. These show you what's happened to employment in our country, our labour market, in the 4 years of the Great Recession at the end of 2011. The blue bar shows you the fall in employment of British-born people. See a dramatic fall in the worst point of the recession, about 800,000 people from early 2008 to the middle of 2009. Been staying at around that level. 800,000 people of British birth lost their jobs in the Great Recession. The red bar shows you foreign-born people. See, employment of foreign-born people in our country, in our labour market, was rising in this period, and overall 400,000 foreigners got jobs in our country in that period, about half, by the way, from Eastern Europe. It is true that British people lost jobs because of immigration. It is true, all right? Don't let people try and dispute that. It is true. And as I say, these are official numbers. They're not something, they are all available. If anybody comes back and says, I'm not making this up, I've got the sources and all the rest of it. Sometimes it's said that, you should let these people in and all the rest of it. And sometimes I can't prove that the blue bar and the red bar are causing each other like this. I can't. But let me just show you this. It shows you, that's a thick red line there. It'll be difficult to see at the back, but it shows you of people of working age in this country, coming from the EU8, that's the East European countries. It shows you the proportion of those people at work, and notice a jump in 2003 and 2004. And what happened then? That was when our labour market was opened up by the Labour government under Tony Blair to immigration from Eastern Europe. All right? Let's just be clear. They did come here for work, and they did take jobs away from British people. Of course, when people are here, we must be welcoming and friendly to them, of course, and we must always repudiate discrimination against foreign-born people, of course. Having said that, we must get back control of our borders, and the only way we can do that is by leaving the European Union. So, a membership of the EU destroys British jobs because of too much immigration from the rest of the European Union. So put that together, this is the soundbite that we must repeat time and time again. EU membership destroys jobs because of excessive regulation and too much immigration from the rest of the EU, and the way to get those jobs back is actually to leave the European Union. I haven't got a lot of time left to talk about damage that the EU does to small businesses. There's a lot of damages. I know my own constituents, the Borough of Dean, my agent in 2010, it's a chap who built a business selling lipsticks, and it was destroyed by an EU regulation on substances. You had to sack 12 people. Let me finish. I don't want to have any copies of this left when I go today. It's an excellent document. It sets out, a bit more detail, some of the arguments I've set out in the last 15 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, for too long, Labour, the Conservatives, and particularly the Lib Dems, have told lies about the membership of the European Union. The British people deserve the truth. And it's our job, the UK Independence Party, to tell them the truth. Thank you very much.